everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of News for Normies. I am Millennial Meditations, your host, and I will be bringing you a week's worth of news in a relatively short time frame. Not sure how long this one's going to go for. Might be quick. Not a whole lot to talk about, but you never know. I might rant and rumble a little bit here. So, speaking of rumble, go follow me on all the socials. They are down below. If you're watching on video, down there in the comments or the description. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, and Spotify. Links for all those are below. And as always, references for everything I talk about here. So you know I'm not just coming up with wild conspiracy theories like the last topic of today's podcast. So with that all being said, go follow me on the socials, especially Rumble. Rumble is much better to content creators like myself. So, the big story that everybody's been talking about this week, the FBI has arrested a man who is suspected of planting pipe bombs at the RNC and DNC headquarters on January 5th, 2021. And here is Pam Bondi talking about the arrest of the suspect.
Early this morning, Brian Cole Jr. was arrested and charged with placing the pipe bombs at the RNC and the DNC on January 5th, 2021. He has been charged with violating 18 U.S.C. 844, which is use of an explosive device. This investigation is ongoing. As we speak, search warrants are being executed, and there could be more charges to come. I'm going to let our U.S. Attorney discuss that shortly. This was the work of multiple agencies working together. This morning's operation was carried out safely and successfully.
So I'm glad that this suspect was caught because let me tell you, I have not been able to sleep well ever since that happened because, you know, he could have been out there anywhere planting pipe bombs anywhere. Churches, schools, banks, grocery stores, you name it. Sure. So Brian Cole Jr. is the suspect, and CNN came in with this stellar top-notch reporting once the announcement was made.
Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. After nearly 5 years of investigation, the FBI finally announced that they had arrested a suspect accused of planting pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters the night before the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning. Attorney General Pam Bondi gave very few details about the suspect this morning, but said this cold case has been solved.
Yeah, so there's your most trusted name in news right there, saying that Brian Cole is a white man, even though he looks almost identical to Steve Urkel. So, I think when somebody reached out to CNN for comment, they said, "Oh, did I do that?" It's not my joke. I stole that from the internet. So what's interesting about this character, Brian Cole Jr., is that he apparently worked for his dad's bail bonds company that dealt heavily with illegal aliens fighting cases to, try to stay in this country, even though they don't belong here. His dad's company also sued the Trump administration in 2018 and partnered up with attorney Ben Crump in 2021. If you don't know who Ben Crump is, he's the lawyer that always gets involved when a Michael Brown, George Floyd type situation happens. So, you know what I'm saying. As I've stated before, do not give the left the benefit of the doubt when mistakes like this happen. This is not a simple mistake. It was deliberate. They've done this kind of shit before. This is intentional. They are intentionally stoking racist flames to get people all riled up. The only motive that leftist outlets like this have anymore is to play the race card, because that's all they've got. They've been shown to be dishonest time and time again. Hence why I do this show. Yeah, so you can also see this when you read a written article from one of these outlets. Anytime the term white man is used, in case of something major happening, the W in white man is always lowercase, but if the term black man is used, the B is capitalized. So, again, showing the racist colors there. Brian Cole Jr. made his first appearance in court yesterday as I record this, December 6th, so he was in court yesterday, December 5th. But as we've seen with cases against people like James Comey and Letitia James, he'll probably walk free. So, and as I think it was Kash Patel pointed out, why did it take 5 years for this to come out? The FBI was involved with tracking down little old ladies who walked in the ropes at the Capitol building on January 6th. They couldn't have found the guy who planted pipe bombs at the RNC and DNC headquarters. And also, I think I heard that Kamala Harris unintentionally walked within like 20 feet of one of these pipe bombs. So where was her security detail that day? That's why I was wearing this right off the top of the bat. If you want to see more of the tinfoil top hat, let me know. Yeah, so weird stuff going on there. Hopefully this guy, gets the book thrown at him, but, considering he's an anti-Trumper and most judges are anti-Trumpers, probably not. Moving on, we are going to stay in the great state of Minnesota for a minute because a report from the Department of Transportation has found that nearly 1/3 of commercial driver's licenses, or CDLs, that were issued in Minnesota were not in compliance with federal regulations. Cool. So California was doing that, now Minnesota's doing it. Also, fraud from the Somali community there is much greater than initially reported. Nearly $1 billion, billion with a B, bravo, billion, has been scammed from the government in the Somali community there. Because of this, Trump called Tim Walz seriously retarded in a post on Truth Social that you see here, and thankfully somebody underlined it for you so you can see it. It's a big post, so feel free to pause and read the whole thing. I'm not going to read it, but he said this in a post on Truth Social and then doubled down on it afterwards.
In that same post, you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find an offensive word, retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
But you don't think that...
You have a problem with him? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into his state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country. It's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
And reasons like that is why I love Trump. He just doesn't care anymore and will just let it fly. That's what people have wanted from politicians for a long, long time. And I'm so here for it. Obviously, there's times when Trump needs to be criticized, but this is one of them that I love it. Also, Trump also threatened to pull $30 million in federal funding to the state because Tim Walz has ran that state into the ground, much like Gavin Newsom did with California. Tim Walz, living up to the name of Tampon Tim here, then whined on camera that people were doing the same thing to him at his home.
True. This creates danger. And I'll tell you what, in my time on this, I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful. And I have yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful. He should not say it. So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence. So deeply concerned.
Okay, buddy. Starts with taunts and then ends in violence. Yeah, because, it was Charlie Kirk that got shot. It was the guy in Portland that got shot simply for being a Trump supporter. Tesla dealerships were shot up. Tesla charging stations were firebombed. The list goes on and on. Okay. It's because all of that is right-wing violence. Anyway, moving on. Ilhan Omar had a hot take on all of this going on as well. And it's very, very interesting.
First of all, federal prosecutors say 59 people have been investigated in these schemes so far. Americans at large stole tens of billions of forms of aid during the pandemic all over the country. Minnesota's fraud scandal stands out, according to federal auditors. What are you hearing from investigators right now?
Well, I've been following the cases closely as they've gone through the courts, and we know that there are more indictments possibly coming. I think that number might go up to 73 is what I'm hearing.
Okay. Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
Now, obviously, whatever the ethnic group, the actions of a few dozen should not impugn an entire community of thousands of people.
So it's funny that she's blaming the lack of guardrails put in place instead of the fact that people are scamming the government, i.e. the American taxpayer. So remember all of this shit when you go to vote. Your taxes are being scammed by people who do not belong here and sent back to terrorist organizations in the beautiful country of Somalia, as I talked about last week. If Somalia is so great, why are thousands upon thousands of people fleeing that country to come here? And when was the last time you heard of some rich celebrity taking a vacation to Somalia? You never hear about Tom Cruise taking a vacation there, or Brad Pitt, or Angelina Jolie, or Sabrina Carpenter, who apparently got butthurt that the White House used one of her songs. You never hear about these people going to Somalia. And that's because Somalia is a shithole. Not mincing words about it. So hopefully the FBI drops the hammer on Minnesota and gets a lot of these people out of the country because they don't belong here. And why Minnesota of all states? It's super cold there in the wintertime. And like outside of St. Paul, like there's not much going on there. Why? Well, probably because they want to take states that would more than likely lean red and flip them blue. That's why. Now, this one came out of nowhere. Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow, recently hinted that he may run for governor of Minnesota.
Sex addiction, all addictions that's based on Christian principles. Why is he targeting you, sir?
Well, he's I would call him a radical Muslim. He hates. I believe he hates our country. You have Elon Omar over there too, and I think all the attacks on me, they don't want people getting off addiction and becoming Christians or giving their life to Jesus Christ. He could also be a little upset that I'm considering running for governor of Minnesota. I mean, the attacks got turned up then all of a sudden.
You're doing, hold it, that's a scoop. You're considering doing what?
Running for governor of Minnesota against Tim Walz.
Is this actually, am I breaking news here on the, it's too much news we're breaking today in the world. Is this true? Mike Lindell's thinking
we'll talk
around
more
for
about
governor?
that. Absolutely.
Now, while Tim Walz is under a lot of scrutiny at the moment, Mike Lindell would be up against several other Republican candidates in the state. However, out of all of those candidates in question, Lindell has the name recognition, which gets you a long way in politics, so I believe that would give him a leg up in this race. At this point, though, any Republican would be better than retarded tampon Tim Walz. I mean, a ham sandwich would govern that state better. So, best of luck to you, Mike Lindell, if you choose to run. That state needs a lot of help. Now, speaking of Donald Trump, this is a good thing for people who want to buy cars, because Donald Trump recently announced they are going to be pausing CAFE standards on auto manufacturers.
Officially terminating Joe Biden's ridiculously burdensome, horrible actually, CAFE standards that imposed expensive restrictions and all sorts of problems, gave all sorts of problems to automakers. And we're not only talking about here, we're talking about outside of our country, because nobody could do it. Nobody wanted to do it, and it was ridiculous. very expensive. It put tremendous upward pressure on car prices. Combined with the insane electric vehicle mandate, Biden's burdensome regulations helped cause the price of cars to soar more than 25%. And in one case, they went up 18% in 1 year. Today, we're taking one more step to kill the Green New Scam. It's part of the greatest scam, probably, well, other than Russia, and a few others I could name. The greatest scam in American history, the Green New Scam.
So what this means is that small cars and light-duty trucks, such as the Toyota Hilux, will be available again in the United States. And in my opinion, the new Hilux looks sick. So I don't know about you, but I want that new Toyota Hilux, especially if the interior is as minimal as possible. I don't need a laptop screen for a dashboard. It's a car. It's not going into space. I don't need all these fancy lights and buttons and stuff. Give me a simple dashboard for my speedometer and RPMs and engine temperature, stuff like that. Bluetooth connection for my phone, and simple dials and buttons for the air control in the cab. Let's stop doing this climate control bullshit in the cab, because in the wintertime, hot defrost becomes cool again. That's how my current car is. It sucks. You set the temperature at 70 for defrost, and it gets hot and then gets cool again. It's like, the last thing I want when it's 18 degrees outside is cool air blowing on my windshield and then in my face. So let's stop doing that. Please, can we just go back to like early 2000s? You know, you had a little dial for how hot you want it to be and a button to cycle through defrost, air on you and your feet, defrost and feet. Let's just go back to that. Make it simple again. Maybe I should run for office with the catchphrase, make cars simple again. MCS, I don't know. We're workshopping it. But yeah, so that's great. That will cause car prices to drop. And, you know, maybe a new Chevy Silverado will be around $40,000 instead of $60,000 to $80,000. You gotta have a mortgage just to buy a car. So that's great. Now, this other story has been a national story for the past week, and, well, I don't want to spoil it here. Pete Hegseth has been labeled a war criminal because of airstrikes on Venezuela drug traffickers in September of this year. However, it turns out the Washington Post blatantly lied about this, and of all people, the New York Times completely debunked the Washington Post. The whole narrative came about when a drug boat was hit in the Caribbean with 9 of the 11 people on board killed. The war crime in question stems from a second strike to take out the remaining 2. Now, I heard all kinds of takes and arguments about this, so from what I have gathered this week, this isn't considered a war crime because this isn't a conventional war in terms of one country attacking another, like we saw in World War I or World War II, or I guess Vietnam. You know, there's not 2 unified armies going against each other. And also, according to war laws, for lack of a better term, I'm a civilian, as you can tell. If an enemy combatant is wounded but is trying to go for a weapon system or communications, that is considered still an act of war, and they are still considered an active enemy combatant. So there's also another reason this isn't a war crime. Regardless, I find no problem with this. These narco-terrorists have brought in drugs for the last 25 plus years, probably more, that have killed more Americans than all the wars we've ever been in. Also, these narco-terrorists are working with literal terrorist organizations. So, again, do not care. wipe them off the face of this earth. Don't care. It's just insane. If you want to see a full breakdown of how this was debunked, there's an article below. I think it was from Town Hall. Go read it. It will show you step by step how this was debunked. Also, weird take from Rand Paul. He essentially sided with the drug traffickers on this one with this wild take on X, where he says 1/4 of boats didn't have drugs on them, so that means 3/4 of them did, which, if you want to, do the math, 3 divided by 4 equals 75%. What are we doing here, man? And because of this, he absolutely got ratioed on the platform, meaning a lot of people were calling him out for this wild take. So, why does this matter? Because people like the Seditious Six and more are trying to turn the military against Donald Trump, and therefore against everyone who voted for Trump. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a video that came out a couple weeks ago of several politicians in DC telling military personnel to defy illegal orders, which means anything Trump says. They are literally trying to turn the military against the president, which is seditious and should be, what's the word I'm looking for here? Just had a Biden moment. The word just left me. Prosecuted as such. Thank you. Yeah, so keep this stuff in mind when elections come around, especially because we got midterms coming up. And speaking of elections, the Supreme Court has said they are going to take up the case on birthright citizenship, and with the current makeup of the Supreme Court, birthright citizenship may be overturned. President Trump signed an executive order banning this kind of stuff back in January of this year, so that's what the Supreme Court is going to hear, I think, January of next year. This means that, some illegal alien can't cross the border, get an American woman pregnant, and then that child is automatically considered an American citizen, and therefore, that dude that came across the border would get special treatment as well. The term anchor babies. This also applies if, a pregnant woman comes here and then gives birth to a child, even though she's not an American citizen, that child would automatically be considered an American citizen because they were born here in the United States. So this stuff would get overturned. This would be disastrous for the Democrat Party, as they need people like that in their voting base. So be prepared for the left to scream and cry racism over this one, as they always do. I'm calling it now. This gets overturned, the leftists are going to lose their mind and scream racism. Interesting little story here. An internal memo was leaked from an FDA director named Dr. Vinay Prasad, I think is how you say that, claiming that 10 out of 96 kids who were given a COVID vaccine died. Now, while this is a very small sample size of children to draw data from, it's alarming that this is just now coming to light, and coincides with a lot of weird things that people were saying during that time. I'm sure everybody has known someone who had some sort of adverse effect from the COVID shots. I personally know someone who took a COVID vaccine, quote unquote, and died of a heart attack 2 weeks later. Now, to play devil's advocate, he was not in the best health anyway, so, a lot of murky details there, but still weird. Yeah, and until Anthony Fauci's in prison, then obviously nothing much is going to come of this. Now, this was kind of funny. Didn't expect this to happen. Halle Berry, the actress, recently slammed Gavin Newsom at an event they were both at.
But the opposite of that, back in my great state of California, my very own governor, Gavin Newsom, has vetoed our menopause bill, not 1 but 2 years in a row. But that's okay, because he's not going to be governor forever. And with the way he's overlooked women, half the population, by devaluing us in midlife, he probably should not be our next president either. Just saying. I need every woman in this country to fight with me. But the truth is, the fight isn't just for us women. We need men too. We need all of the leaders, every single one of you in this room. This fight needs you.
Now, I'm not entirely sure about what the bill was that she was talking about, but obviously she's passionate about it. And this public denouncement came just before Newsom took the stage. So I'm glad to see that some Democrats are pointing out the failures of Gavin Newsom, because we all know that he's gearing up for a presidential run in 2028. No doubt about that. And I would love to see another debate between him and JD Vance, because Vance will absolutely wipe the floor with him a second time. It would be like watching Mike Tyson in his prime box anybody. Also, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro called out Kamala Harris for blatant lies about him in her book 107 Days. That book was about her failed presidential run that took 107 days, and they spent over $1 billion. So how that happens, I don't know. Seems like a lot of money in a short time. But anyway, moving back to Josh Shapiro. According to Blake Wolf at One America News Network, Josh Shapiro sat down with an interview to interview Tim Alberta. I think this was his name. I should have put that in my notes. And Shapiro said that, quote, Harris accused Shapiro of essentially hijacking the conversation during his interview to become her running mate, and instead of insisting on being, quote, in the room for every decision, end quote, prompting Harris to remind Shapiro that a vice president is not a co-president, end quote. And also, he said, that's complete and utter bullshit about some other claims she made. He also says, I can tell you that her accounts are just blatant lies, end quote. There we go. Too many quotes all in there. So, just like we saw from Halle Berry, I'm happy to see this public infighting from the left. What I'm not happy about is the infighting on the right as we have midterms coming up next year. Which leads me into my last story today. Bear with me on this one, because there's a lot of shit to go over here. Candace Owens, again, talking about Candace Owens, is now claiming she has concrete evidence that Turning Point USA had Charlie Kirk murdered, even though she previously claimed Israel/France did it, and also somehow the CIA was involved. I swear, she's like Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, with all the strings going everywhere and no real conclusion at the end. Blake Neff, who is one of the guys over at Turning Point, went in deep on all of Candace's claims. Here is his response to Candace Owens. It is nearly 8 minutes long, so bear with it till the end, or fast forward, whatever you choose to do. But here is his response to Candace Owens' claims.
We wanted to use this segment at the top of this hour to say something important, something very important. For the past 2.5 months, there is a topic that has flooded our Freedom inbox. It has been nonstop on social media, but which we have almost totally avoided on this show. You probably already know what I'm talking about, which shows just how ubiquitous it has been. Ever since Charlie's murder, Candace Owens has leveled a flood of allegations against people at Turning Point USA, people at Turning Point Action, and people who work for this show. She's made them against some of Charlie's closest friends and against some of his most dedicated employees. She has suggested that Michael McCoy, Charlie's chief of staff, knew Charlie would be murdered, was happy that he died, and stayed silent because he was told he would be the next Charlie. She has suggested Michael is not his real name. It is. I have seen his birth certificate myself. She has called it suspicious that Mikey's wife, who works at Turning Point, helped plan the campus tour event where Charlie was murdered, which she didn't, by the way. She doesn't work on campus events. Candace has suggested the Utah Valley University event was unusual and its details suggested a, quote, inside job. She has claimed that foreign aircraft have followed Erica Kirk around the country and that Turning Point has lied about this happening. She has accused us of lying about Charlie wanting Erica to take over for him if he died. She has suggested Charlie's security team intentionally denied him first aid after the shooting to ensure that he died. She has raised suspicions about the head of our technical team because he took an SD card out of a camera. She has spread absurd claims that Tyler Boyer, who we just had on the show, sexually abuses male interns. She has suggested that TPUSA faith-affiliated pastors, like theologian Frank Turek, who we'll have on in a moment, and Pastor Rob McCoy, are part of a military, quote, infiltration of Turning Point, either because they are veterans or because they have family members who are. Even if not everyone has been named specifically, though, Candace has effectively tarred everyone here with complicity in Charlie's death by repeatedly saying he was, quote, betrayed by, quote, everyone. She has said Charlie's murder, quote, had to be approved by Charlie's friends, and then suggested those friends might have her murdered too for, quote, knowing the truth. She has made claims of financial impropriety and fraud at Turning Point, adding up into the millions of dollars, which, again, is not true. Charlie made sure the organization was audited by a third party every year. He personally reviewed and he signed off on every expense report, and literally every single bill paid by the organization down to a single United States dollar. We have never missed a 990 deadline. Candace has made other stranger allegations involving French paratroopers in maroon shirts, Egyptian Air Force planes flying out of Provo, Utah, and potential underground assassins traveling through unseen tunnels. At one point in early November, she started wildly throwing suspicion on members of Utah Valley's soccer team for wearing hoodies. I could go on. There is always something new coming up, and none of it ever pans out because, from the start, there has been nothing there. The attacks and allegations from Candace are either lies or they are innuendos thrown around with a total, reckless disregard for the truth, so that Candace can manipulate and string along an audience of people who don't realize they are being played. Instead of being able to grieve properly after one of the most heinous murders in American history, a murder many of us had to witness, my friends have had to endure harassment from people who have gotten whipped up by what Candace is saying. In fact, I would say we have suffered more harassment from these people than we have from Antifa supporters who overtly celebrate Charlie's murder. And just like a lot of those Antifa members, many of these people take this delight in how gross and unpleasant they can be. What our friends have had to endure is not funny, and it's not insignificant. It is evil. I have seen it. For months, we have received hundreds, thousands, I suspect, emails and calls asking us to respond. People have wanted us to invite Candace on the show, but for a long time, our approach was to say nothing. We did that for several reasons. First, we thought that her prevarications were so absurd that nobody would believe them. We shouldn't have to answer questions about secret tunnels or Egyptian Air Force planes. That sort of thing is just, it's beneath contempt to respond to. The second reason we've said so little, though, is because there's a good rule of thumb, which Charlie followed. Do not feed the trolls. Focus on the mission. Reviving America, uplifting young people, making heaven crowded. Don't give air to people who want to tear you down and sow discord. Lastly, we didn't respond because Charlie always viewed Candace as a friend, and we were holding out hope that she would return that friendship and stop what she was doing. But a week from now, it's going to be 3 months since Charlie's murder. Candace has not changed her behavior. She has continued to spread falsehoods about Charlie's friends, and she continues to concoct new ones about new people. She's using these falsehoods to enrich herself while dividing the conservative movement at an absolutely critical time for this country. And far too often, we here have heard from ordinary people, people who loved Charlie and who Charlie loved so much in return. These people have expressed the worry that we are staying silent out of cowardice or as some sort of tacit admission that some of the attacks are true. Neither is the case. Our silence has never been, and it will never be, equal to complacency or approval. Still, we decided Charlie would not allow this to go on. Charlie was not a coward. Charlie was a fighter. Charlie would not allow someone to spread lies about the people closest to him with impunity, and he would feel ashamed if other people were stepping up to defend his friends while he never did so himself. Candace has mentioned several times that the ball is in our court. So here's what is going to happen. In the near future, there will be a live stream here in Phoenix where we address in a clear and comprehensive way the claims and accusations, the false accusations that have been made against Charlie's family, friends, and the people here at Turning Point. We plan to walk through everything carefully and thoroughly. If Candace is available, we would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream at our studio here in Phoenix. At this point, we believe the ball is back in her court. Our motivation for doing this is not out of any obligation to Candace. It is about honoring Charlie. We feel a deep responsibility to protect his legacy, his work, and the truth. I feel that. I owe Charlie everything in my life. I feel it immensely. And that is why we feel compelled to speak clearly and openly now. We'll have more on this in the near future.
So, on top of this, TPUSA invited her to come discuss the issue in person, but she declined as it coincided with the time she normally does her show.
If Candace is available, we would sincerely welcome her participation in that live stream at our studio here in Phoenix. At this point, we believe the ball is back in her court.
So I accept it with whistles and bells, everything. I fully accept. You can pick the place, you can pick the time. At 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. local time on Monday, December 15th, from Charlie's Phoenix studio, our offer from yesterday holds. If Candace wishes to join us in person in Phoenix, you can pick the place, you can pick the time. Obviously, leading up to Christmas, that's the last week of our show. Obviously, it's a pretty busy week. You can pick the place, you can pick the time, but no, they need to have it in person in Phoenix on December 15th, or they cannot have me at all.
So that little clip was just a little bit of the encapsulation of Candace Owens making these outrageous claims and saying she'll back it up and then backs out of it. Real convenient. This is getting so tiring. She is getting so exhausting. And she's become so unhinged that even Nick Fuentes has called her out. Again, this is a long rant from Nick Fuentes, but it's worth it.
If she's so afraid for her life, why was she at Tucker Carlson's Christmas party in Nashville last night? Why was she at Dollywood on Thanksgiving, the theme park? So, allegedly, the French government and the Israeli intelligence have put a hit out on you. They've paid millions of dollars to kill you, but you're walking around a theme park in your town. You're walking around, for those that don't know, Dollywood, Dollyland. It's like Dolly Parton's Disney World. You're walking around Disney World? You're walking around an amusement park in your hometown on the holiday weekend when allegedly everyone's trying to kill you? Then you go to a Christmas party with Tucker Carlson in the same city, attended by hundreds of people, and people know you're going to be there with Tucker and all the based people in one room, but you can't go to Turning Point, where everybody knows you're going to be, and if anything happened to you, God forbid, they would immediately blame Turning Point. It doesn't even make any sense. So she says, I'm going to live stream the live stream, and I'm going to fact check it in real time. Why? I think we all know why. She's totally full of shit. She doesn't care about the truth. If she did, she would go, no matter the cost. If she were really courageous and a truth teller, she would bootstrap it and she would say, wish me luck. She would kiss her husband when she walks out the door and say, it might not be coming back. And she would go and just fully send it and do it. Because if this is really, as she says, of cosmic, spiritual, geopolitical significance, you have to. And it's being offered up on a silver platter. You just have to. After talking all this shit, driving everybody against each other for the past 3 months, you got to do it. So clearly, she doesn't believe what she's saying as far as the significance of all of this. Secondly, I don't think she believes what she's saying about Turning Point. Why does she not want to go in person? Because if she goes in person, she might get caught on the back foot. She might find out that her whole theory was wrong and that all of her facts are wrong, and she might not be able to explain herself. If she's at home, she's not under pressure. What's more, she's got her producer in her ear, like she did when I was on her show, like she does on all her shows. What's the producer's name? Skylar? She's going to have Skylar in her ear. So when she mispronounces something or she gets something wrong, she's going to say, Skylar, what was that? And Skylar can be on AI. Skylar can be on Twitter, and he can help her out. She can have air support. That's what this is about. And so she knows, first of all, it's obviously she does not mean what she says. It is not that important to her. And she does not have the courage of her convictions. She knows she's going to melt at turning point. She needs backup. So then she's going to engage in yet another lie. And then she's going to gaslight the world and say, oh, I'm not a coward. It's not that I don't have the courage of my convictions. It's they are being weird. They're being weird. I'm not backing down. They said we're going to do a stream. You said name the time and place. They did. Now you're saying you can't go in person, but you can live stream it. And we all know why that is. But then she'll turn around and say, oh, I'm not a coward. They're just being weird. They announced it at midnight, so that's why I can't go. You can't go because they announced it at midnight? You can't go because you're seeing this on Twitter and not in your inbox? I mean, what are you even talking about? And so this is where it's like, if you're still on this train, I honestly have no respect for you. If you're still on board after this, I don't know how anybody can buy in. And like I said, I'm not saying this for rhetorical effect. I would actually love to see her talk to Turning Point, because there's not a losing scenario there. If she goes to Turning Point, we're either going to find out that she was right all along. She's going to bring the receipts. She's going to name the names. She's going to put the screws in these people, and she is going to blow the lid on everything. And you know what? If she's right, we want to know. If she's right, I want to know that, and I want to see it. I want to see it proved. And if she's right, I will issue a public apology on video and writing. I will say, you know what? I doubted you. I didn't get it. You were right all along, blah, blah. Honest to God. And if she's wrong, then we'll know that too. We'll know that whatever the errors she made are, we will know what they are. And maybe it'll bring us closer to a bigger truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk, whether it was Tyler Robinson or some other thing went on, or maybe Turning Point wasn't in on it. We'll know more. And I think everybody wants to see it. We want to see, she's been building the energy for 3 months. This is supposed to be the climactic, like jury trial, courtroom drama moment. And she goes, I can't go. Well, you know what? I can't take you seriously then.
So I usually can't stand Nick Fuentes, and I've called him out for his blatant racism in the past. But I have to agree with him on the issue of Candace Owens here. Not because of the color of her skin, just so that way nobody takes this out of context, but because she's made claims, said she'll back them up, and now she's backing out of it. So, at this point, I believe, and this is my own conspiracy theory, that Candace Owens is secretly jealous of Erica Kirk for either being married to Charlie and or the organization that they built. That's just my take, because she has gone on and on for the past, 2.5, 3 months about Charlie Kirk's death, as if she's mourning a lost lover. And honestly, why would anyone in Turning Point want Charlie dead? He was the face of Turning Point USA. Now, I've heard that people on the inside wanted him dead because of his backing away from Israel, and they had donors, and they lost out on donation money, which meant that people within TPUSA would lose out on paychecks. But you're killing the guy that built your organization over one missed paycheck when his death could result in the whole thing going away and everybody being out of a job. Does not make a lot of financial sense to me. And so, as I've said time and time again, Candace Owens is peddling conspiracy theories and is in it for the clicks. She's a grifter. She's in it to make money for herself. So please stop paying attention to her and make her fade away from the public limelight. I do not wish any harm to come to her. I just wish she would go away. That way we can focus on other issues, bigger topics, and not these insane conspiracy theories that she keeps peddling. So, if you've made it this far, thank you for staying around and watching. That's all I've got for this week. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think about Candace Owens? Do you side with her? Do you disagree with her? Where do you land there? Because I would love to know. I'm sure you already know my opinions because I've given them many times on this channel before. With that all being said, I will see you all next time. Take care.